Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
The Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at betonline.ag. Here we are in December, and that means the sports action across the board in NFL, college football, NBA, and NHL is going to be off the charts. Get in the mix at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
Hey, welcome to another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. Every week, we are bringing out some of the most requested episodes of the podcast from behind the archives. We have another great one for you this week, and here's my producer, Sean, to tell you all about it.
Welcome, everybody, to another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. Producer Sean with episode 106, featuring Michael P.S. Hayes. Original air date, April 10th, 2014. This episode is literally the next episode right after the episode from last week, which was Lita, and this was also recorded over WrestleMania 30 weekend. Pretty much a look back through Michael Hayes' career. Of course, Michael Hayes, known best for his team, the Freebirds, along with Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Buddy Jack Roberts, Jimmy Jam Garvin. Steve and Michael, though, talked pretty extensively about Michael's in-ring work, which this is really significant to me. Michael, I believe, started wrestling at age 17 in the Southern Territories. So for a lot of the stuff that he did that we know the Freebirds for, and Michael Hayes for, was done like in his early to mid-20s. And that's pretty wild, considering how much he packed into his 20s and early 30s, because he retired at age 34, going on to become Dok Hendrix in the WWE. He had a back injury, so he had to, retire from the ring. But it's pretty wild just knowing that he did all the Von Erichs stuff and all the AWA stuff and all of his stuff in the NWA and, with the Steiners and all Doom and all those tag team matches he had. And he was just in his 20s. This guy has lived a life. Steve and Michael get into that in depth, talking about, of course, his feud with the Von Erichs in World Class Championship Wrestling, something that Steve remembers very fondly, as well as Michael's time working in Mid-South and the AWA. There's some really cool shout-outs in here, of course. Michael shouts out Bruiser Brody. You got the Wild Samoans, the Road Warriors, John Tatum, Hollywood John Tatum, a notable mainstay in the UWF and World Class areas. And he also gives a big shout-out to Mike Boyette, known as the California Hippie. He mentions him a few times, which I know Mike Boyette because he was a enhancement wrestler in the UWF and pretty much everywhere else in the Southern Territories for a very long time. I'm looking at his Wikipedia right now. Guy used to be a judo champion, ended up almost making it to the 1964 Olympics for judo. But we're not talking about Michael Boyette, who sadly is no longer with us. We're talking about Michael Hayes, and there's a lot of cool stuff in this episode to go around. You guys are going to dig it. This day in Steve Austin history for December 12th. Let's get into it. We start off in 1991 in Melbourne, Florida. WCW TV champion Steve Austin defeated Firebreaker Chip. Who's Firebreaker Chip, you ask? Well, he was one half of the WCW Patriots, along with Todd Champion. They were former U.S. Tag Team Champions. Ask your parents about them. 1992 in St. Paul, Minnesota, Eric Watts defeated Steve Austin. And finally, for the WWF in 2000, in New York City, New York, at Madison Square Garden, it was a SmackDown taping featuring the main event of WWF World Champion Kurt Angle, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and Undertaker battling to a no contest when Triple H and Rikishi interfered. Of course, I get information from the history of WWE.com and ProFightDB.com. All right, folks, thanks for listening. Please rate, review the podcast on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends about it, and send Steve some questions at steveaustonshow.com. He's looking for matches to watch, so hit him up. But thanks for listening, folks. We'll be right back with Michael P.S. Hayes on another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show.
December has begun, and every game here on out in the NFL means that much more. Everything is on the line when it comes to securing a spot in the playoffs. Here's what we got this weekend. We got the Cowboys versus the Bears, the Ravens facing the Bills, the 49ers up against the Saints, and a big matchup between the Chiefs and the Patriots. Visit our good friends and exclusive partners of PodcastOne, betonline.ag, to take advantage of the best bonuses in the business. Sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne. Again, that's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partners of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
The only time Doc had any good moments was when I stooged off Jake to you when you were coming back from the hospital there in Milwaukee at the King of the Ring.
Okay, let's jump in right there. There we were.
You know what? I'm not crazy about Dok Hendrix, especially at the time, because I still thought I had a lot of gas in my tank, or at least enough to run around the track once or twice more.
So you're saying when they converted you to Dok Hendrix, you were an on-air personality and not someone in the squared circle.
Right.
Okay.
I was. And that hurt, but at the point I was in my lifetime, coming off back surgery, and could tell right away that I was not, I'll be the first to say that I wasn't the greatest wrestler of all time. And I get a kick out of it when people come up and say, you weren't the greatest wrestler of all time. I go, no, I wasn't, but I sold out. So, when you want to go look at that, just call me box office, okay?
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, you're one of my favorites. But, yeah, no, you weren't one of the greatest, but you were an attraction. Your attitude, y'all swagger. I mean, the Freebirds, the whole gimmick, you, Bam Bam Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts. I mean, the whole unit. Man, I was a college student at North Texas State University, man. As soon as I knew the Freebirds were coming into town, I was going to buy a ticket. And y'all could all work your ass off. Were you the most graceful person in the ring? No. And to that point, neither was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Sold a couple tickets in my day, though.
Yeah.
It ain't always the greatest. It ain't always the greatest athlete that rings up the cash register.
No, fans don't buy tickets for grace. But that was the problem. Is that really the Freebird thing wasn't a gimmick. It was a lifestyle.
That's what I mean.
It was us. Yeah. And I wasn't able to let go of that lifestyle. And then I'd never really been in the corporate world, a little bit in WCW. And I came up here and I was at the crossroads in my career. And that was what was offered to me. And I decided at that time that, you know what? Maybe there's a time maybe more than once or twice in a man's life where you decide maybe it's time that I don't know everything, and maybe it's time I shut up and I learn some more. And that's basically what I did with the Dok Hendrix thing. I was the pitch man. I was a goofy guy. But what I did in 4 years was I learned television. I learned the inner workings of
television. What was the difference between learning television as you speak now to what you knew as a guy in the ring as a Freebird?
In the ring, I just knew that I didn't know what the television end of the of our genre was looking for. I just knew that I was the guy. I was a star. You come follow me if you want the action, right, or follow us.
So you know how to entertain people once they get in the building. Is how the product is covered from a TV standpoint and a production.
Exactly. And I didn't understand production. Thank you. And plus, I always did have a feeling of confidence because it was quite a barrier to break in rock and roll music in wrestling. I don't think a lot of people have ever come up and said, hey, thanks for doing that, because I didn't have the balls to do it or wouldn't have had the balls to do it. And, we did it for us. It was quite an ordeal to talk Gordy into it. At first, he didn't. I don't know, Michael. I don't know about no rock and roll coming out. So, Terry, we ride up and down the road, okay? We listen to the same Leonard Skinner tape. We throw down some beer and a couple other things. Yeah. And then, we go to the town. We come back. We do the same thing. I said, what it was is there was a marriage in the music business and the wrestling business, if you will. Yeah. Because I would see the same people at concerts when I was a kid growing up. And funny story about that, I went to a Skinner concert about 2 weeks ago, And there we are backstage, me and Johnny Vance. I didn't even know they were in town. I was walking the beach in Pensacola. Some guy comes up and says, Freebird. I said, yeah. He goes, you going to that Freebird concert tonight? I said, no. He said, yeah, Skinner's in town. So I got a hold of the guys and, still keep in touch with them. And there we are before they go on drinking water, laughing. Now, I can guarantee you, 20 years ago, that's not what we would have been doing. We'd have been laughing, but we wouldn't have been drinking water.
Yeah.
So that's a cool involvement. But getting back to the Dok Hendrix thing, it just, every man needs to be humbled at least once or twice in his life. And it's hard to do when you have to, especially in this business, when it's your bravado that carries you.
I always felt, and so when you came in here and you were now going to be Dok Hendrix, how old were you?
I was 35.
Damn. You were that young?
Yeah.
When did you last step out of a ring?
The last time I actually was in a ring was 2001, and before that it had been probably a couple years. I just did the brief thing with the Hardys.
But you really retired at what age?
Oh, probably 34, 33.
Oh,
yeah.
I had no idea it was that soon. Yeah,
you had to remember, I started at 17.
Well, I know, but, in a wrestler's life, in the prime, boy, when you're in those mid-30s, you know so much. You've been back and forth, heel, baby, the whole gamut.
Yep.
And you really have a great psychological. Yeah, but that's very young. I thought, when I left at 40, that was still young.
Sure it is. And it's amazing, to your point, how much you know. You break in and the old-timers will sit there and shake their head at you when you come back. Oh, that was good, kid, but you're just doing too much. And you don't get it. You're like, screw that. I'm going to do everything to get over.
These days, I've been out since WrestleMania 19, almost 12 years. We're at WrestleMania 30 right now in a few days. And I left the business. I retired, but you never leave the business. Your mind is still there. So, it's always evolving. You keep putting on layers and layers of stuff. More knowledge keeps coming in. I watch the product today, and I watch these, young men and women go out there and do the deal and pay the dues and learn the inner workings of a squared circle. And when I go back and watch my stuff, I'm highly critical of everything that I did.
Right.
So my mind keeps evolving and watching what they're doing today. But man, at 34, 35 years of age, so then you come here, you're going to be Dok Hendrix. And you were always a mouthpiece. Was the promo always easy for you? Were you a talkative kid when you was younger?
Yeah. That was one thing that kind of came easy. It was actually Hollywood John Tatum.
I loved him.
And I grew up together.
Yeah.
And
are y'all cousins or just friends?
We're best friends.
Okay.
So anyway, we got in trouble in school for skipping school, and they got sent us to a special crisis class.
Right.
And the assignment was to write a 25-word essay on what you did over the weekend. So he wrote down, Don Carson broke his T-tier on the turnbuckle on Saturday Night Wrestling. And he's sliding it to me. We're only in like 6th grade. And he's about doubled over with laughter, but tried to keep it from the teacher. Yeah. So I laugh. I don't even know what Saturday Night Wrestling is. So he turned me on to it, but he had a way, because his parents, were in politics and they owned the fairgrounds, of kind of being a heel most of his life. And I took a lot of the stuff that he did and I kind of manufactured it into that Michael Hayes persona. And then I stole from Mike the California hippie boyette. And then I was somewhere in between because, in my day, it wasn't just say no, it was just say yes.
Right.
So, I just took a bunch of that stuff and put it together. And then, when I got with Terry Gordy, who was a phenom at 16, back there was no internet. There was, you sent pictures in, like if you wanted to get,
But you're growing up down there in Picola, right?
Right. But Terry was from the Tennessee area.
So you're already in business now?
Yeah, I'm already in the business. I just got brought over to.
And you got in when you were 17?
Yeah.
What'd your parents say when you said, hey, I'm going to be a pro wrestler?
I'll give you 6 months. That's what my mama said. My daddy died when I was like 3 months old. Yeah. But she said, I'll give you 6 months. She's my biggest fan. And, she used to be crazy when she'd go watch us. But anyway, so Gordy was their champion at 16. They were running opposition, Mississippi, to Bill Watts. I got brought over under a mask to, be the job guy.
Right.
And I hit it off with Frankie Kane, the great Mephisto, who was the booker. And I used to ride over with the group of guys that come over from Pensacola. And one week they didn't have nobody do an interview. And, I did this yucky babyface interview, but I said all the right things.
Right.
And he went, that kid can talk. And he gave me the platform to talk. And that started getting me noticed. That's where I broke in with Percy, Paul Bearer. And we used to ride together miles and miles. He wouldn't talk to me.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Why? Because you was a young guy?
No, because I get on his nerves.
Right.
I'm able to do that in life and in the ring.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there and comb my hair all the time. And I'd tell him, I said, I'm going to have this thing where it's going to be the fabulous Freebirds and rock and roll music. And it's going to work and it's going to hit big. And even back then, I thought our business could go big. We discussed this a little bit before we went on the air. I thought it's such an art form, and I'm glad it's finally being realized for that. It's physical art that you have to be special to do.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that can do it a lot better than I could from a mechanical point. But people don't buy mechanics.
Right.
People buy feelings. And that's the thing that the Freebirds and the Von Erichs had. There was a feeling there, it's like when Flair would come on TV, like when you would come on TV, there's all these special people, the elite people have this tangible thing that where they go, oh, hell, something fixing to happen now. Get out the way to TV. I mean, from grandmothers to teenagers, there's just a feeling because people want to be entertained.
Right.
The life they live through us.
Right.
The one they want to live. The life that they do live kind of sucks.
It's tough.
It's
the working man and working woman.
And you know what? I always appreciated somebody buying a ticket. I don't think you can find hardly any fans that ever say they didn't get more than their money's worth when they saw the Freebirds.
Right.
And it was just a pride thing.
Dude, I used to watch when I was going to school at North Texas State University my junior and senior year playing football Friday nights. Sportatorium. I would go down. So who's coming to town? The Freebirds are coming to town. Man, they'd hit y'all's music, and here you would come with that red sequin Confederate flag coming down. Loud, proud, it was just badass, full of swagger. Your damn hair bleached blonde, and then you come in and you get on top of that turnbuckle, start doing the hip thing. I'm like, man, that son of a bitch. I either wanted to kick, because of what y'all were doing. Right. I either wanted to kick your ass or drink beer with you, but I was going to see the Freebirds and Michael Hayes, and it was electricity. People don't know, the people that were there do, and even the days before, because that was kind of on the downswing of WCCW, but just that Sportatorium in general and how hot those Von Erichs were, how hot y'all were. Yeah. That was a great time to be a pro wrestling fan.
It was. When we went in there, I went in there for 1 week for Gary Hart because I'd been running with Gary a little bit when he would bring Kabuki and Georgia Championship Wrestling. And this was one of the times I got fired or quit. I forget. Me and Ole got in an argument. And so they did an angle where they broke my leg, but they didn't really break my leg. Right. But everybody thought they did. So for first time ever, I'm off. The phone don't ring because usually people pick you up off that cable, right, and come on in. And it was always fun. You come in like the champion, you come in a week or two, get a great guarantee. So anyway, I came out there for a week for Gary Hart, and he brought me into what was their big shows. I think they had them like once a quarter. They called them Star Wars. So I went to San Antonio, and I had no expectations. You never heard anybody say, "Oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to Dallas." You just never heard it. Right. You did hear stories about Fritz Von Erich pushes his boys, and he really pushes them down everybody's throat. That was a smart move. Right. But I got to the Hemisphere Arena. A lot of people don't even remember that in San Antonio. Yeah. They had a $50,000 house, and I was shocked at that. I went, oh, my God, you can draw money here. They can draw money. And when I saw the response for the Von Erichs, I just couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen that since I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the top ones. Yeah. I got with Junkyard Dog here in New Orleans. We blew that apart. And that was somebody that was over. Yeah. He wasn't the only one over at the time, but he's the one that popped it. Tommy Rich in his heyday. Yeah. And I don't know that at that point, I would venture to say, if you asked me, the Von Erichs were even stronger in their home area. And I remember I rode back with David Manning, and I got to the payphone, and I called Terry. I said, listen, you need to give your notice. I said, you need to come on out here. We got some business to do. And, we did that whole thing. But the Von Erich there, it just captured the whole state because, as you know from being from Texas, it's its own country. They just love them boys. They had to shut down Six Flags one time in Arlington when they went there because people just mobbed them. That thing just clicked. And that's the one thing about our business is when you get the ball to the top of the hill, then you can screw up and draw money. Right. And we did. Yeah. We did. But I thought we had some really good stuff. We had a really good time, and I'll never forget it in my life,
So what made you decide, hey, man, I'm getting pro wrestling? And who broke you in?
Well, as soon as I watched it, I got hooked. you know. And
what was it? I've been asking this question, but what was it about it to you? Some people have been telling me it was the larger-than-life personas. For me, changing channels at 7 or 8 years of age in Edna, Texas, it was just two guys, and there was no high production values. It was a smoke-filled arena. It was the Sam Houston Coliseum. It was a little rope banister around the ring. It was just two guys going at it for the championship gold, and that was enough. Dusty Rhodes was bleeding like a stuck pig, and that's what got me hooked on it. It was about the competition. It wasn't so much about the spectacle or the larger-than-life personalities. For you, what was it?
Well, that hooked me too. The excitement of it, because it would make you angry and make you happy at the same time.
And you grew up watching which territory?
The Gulf Coast Wrestling.
Okay.
But
would that have been Gordon Soley calling that action?
No. That's South Florida.
Okay.
This is North Florida. They had a variety of announcers. The ring announcer, Don Griffin, I remember him. I don't recall who would call it periodically. They weren't a Gordon Soley, but
Right.
It was that action and the excitement and, the different varied emotions it would make you feel. But now I do have to say, the one that got me was Mike the California Hippie Boyette.
Yeah.
And a guy I stole from, too, was the fabulous Don Fargo.
Right.
When Don Fargo came in with that long bleach blonde hair and that strut, buddy, and he had a different strut than Jarrett did, which he took from Jackie Fargo.
Right.
Don's was more kind of like what I tried to do, like, God damn, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Not look at me. It's like, I am it.
Yeah.
And that I was hooked. I was hooked. So, I implemented a lot of those things that worked for me. And, I could tell that I, without trying, could really tick people off. And, I combined that with, the verbal skills I was blessed with and tried to say things that were contemporary. I always use song lyrics in my promos where people that would hit home with them. And then I would talk about stuff that, people weren't talking about then. It's like, hey, man, look, I know you're not having a good time right now. I know your wife's looking at me and she's wanting me. She surely doesn't want you. And that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got Terry out there. As you know, the rest was history. We got Buddy back out of the oil fields.
How did he come into the mix?
Well, Bill Watts put him with us at first when we were in Louisiana because, I think I was really ticking off Buck Robley with my ring work. Even though the thing was working, Buck had to direct everything from dog to us. Terry,
when you say ticking everybody off with your ring work, meaning what?
That I wasn't up to speed.
Okay, on the green side?
Yeah, to be in that position. You got to remember now, I main evented this place at 21 years old.
Yeah.
Against Junkyard Dog in the Superdome.
Yeah.
And,
Jesus Christ, that's unbelievable.
Lot of heat.
Yeah.
From
the boys.
From the boys.
Yeah, jealousy.
And, and Terry and Buddy was in the double main event with against Buck and Dusty. And, of course, they brought Andre and Hogan in. And that was when Hogan had his first run as a heel.
Yeah.
And they booed that match.
Yeah.
At the time. Of course, it later became one of the biggest matches of all time. So they had a few years to perfect it. But, once I learned how to tick people off, I knew that it was something I could use. And if I could tick the people off without trying, what if I tried?
Right. I know the answer to this question, but obviously I won't ask it. You like working heel better than you do baby.
Oh, God, yeah.
What do you like more about working as a heel?
First of all, I like the power. I like the control. And because without the antagonist, as JR would say, you can't have a protagonist. You can't draw money if there ain't somebody you want to see get their ass kicked. That's just plain and simple. It's a lot different today, but there's still a lot of those basic formulas that will work. You got to want to see somebody get bounced around. And, it always worked, too, because you never died. You never got killed, which is what you build the audience to a fever pitch, and that's what they wanted. I did not like being a babyface. I saw the reasons to do it at times because there's a thin line between love and hate. And sooner or later, if they hate you long enough, they're going to love you.
Right.
But yeah, man, I'm heel through and through.
Your work was much different than Adrian Adonis, but I always put you guys in the same paragraph when I talk about when it's time to get the heat. There was a visual change in your whole body language, everything you did. Anything if it wasn't backpedaling, I mean, it was straight up. You was a piece of shit, mean son of a bitch. And now it's time to really get dirty. And you was dirty to begin with.
Yeah.
Because, you played a little bit of the cowardly stuff, but you played it on the, on the up and up. And, Adrian Adonis, same way. I mean, all of a sudden when it comes time to get that heat, you got nasty. And you got to have that mean streak. In my opinion, to be a great heel, you need many things. But one thing you need to have, you got to be mean.
Yeah, you do. You just have to know when to smell, that blood in the water, and you got to go for it. And that's the thing is like.
And stay on it.
And stay on it.
And to the other end of that, the babyface has to have great fire to reflect that. You get a damn hot-ass heel and you get a limpy-ass a babyface with no fire, nobody gives a rat's ass.
No, they don't. And, once again, I was so blessed to have Terry and Buddy and Jimmy Garvin in later years. I had a great time with Jimmy. But everybody knew their role, and we had 3 different roles. Mm-hmm. We had a shotgun effect. We weren't all the same,
Agreed.
And that was the thing.
Define those roles.
Well, I was the cocky pretty boy.
And the mouthpiece.
And the mouthpiece. Yes. Terry was the muscle. He was the badass.
The bully.
He was the bully. And Buddy was just that shithouse rat.
That everybody in the building could kick his ass.
Yeah.
That's what he was.
When he and David Manning did a hair match in Fort Worth on a Monday night, there was no Terry on the card. There was no Michael on the card. There was no Kerry on the card. They drew $40,000. Yeah. At that time, that was amazing. That said that guy could draw. And Ken Mantell, the booker at the time, he was really smart the way he would use us because, you'd have them spot shows around Dallas. Hell, I don't ever think people understood the magnitude of drawing on a Friday night in Dallas, Texas, because Friday night's football night.
Yeah.
And we drew a lot of money on Friday nights against, high school football. And then, you'd have those, you go to Garland, 30 miles away, right. Do $30,000.
Yeah.
Which 6 guys on the card, but you could send a Freebird, a Von Erich here, a Freebird, a Von Erich there, or send a tag match here and Michael and Kerry there and just roll.
One of the guys that also came through the territory when I was a college student at North Texas State was Bruiser Brody.
Yeah.
Y'all obviously crossed paths with him many times. Probably worked with him on occasion. Did you get along with him? What kind of guy was he?
I got along with Frank. We didn't match up well in the ring.
Right.
Like the first, you'd have to learn how to work with Frank because what Brody would do was like the first time I got in here, I cut him off for a second, started doing my strut. I got about 2 steps and he was all over me, buddy. Yeah. And then he was like, get on me, get on me. And when I got on him, hell, I was blowing up because boom, boom, he'd take all your stuff. But once you learn, now, of course, him and Gordy worked magnificently together. Right. He loved Terry. He's the one that babied Terry and got him over to Japan and got Terry rolling in Japan.
Really?
But I want to go back to something you asked me before I forget to give somebody their props. How did I break in?
Yeah.
So I was going to the matches and Johnny, Hollywood Tatum, his dad knew the police, so they would let us come in and we could stand by the curtain and watch and get in for free. That was a big deal. So we, I won't name the wrestler, but he saw us and I guess even my look then at 14 or 15, I looked like I might be able to score him some nature's medicine.
Right.
One thing led to another. From there, I met Robert Gibson, who I know is Reuben Gibson from the Rock and Roll Express.
Great
so
time.
We started becoming buddies, and we would hang out at the pool hall. And one day, I'll never forget the day he said to me, he said, hey, man, I got an opening on the TV rig crew. You want the spot? I thought I died and went to heaven. And that's what I did. I started putting up the ring. And then from there, I started refereeing. I went Bad Boy Jimmy Hines on a mat at the Myrtle Grove YMCA in Pensacola, just taught me a few things, and everything I just kind of learned as I progressed. That was my in. And once I got in, man, I just wasn't going to stop till I got to the top.
How long did you referee?
About a year or so.
Man, that's a hell of a background to have once you try to start getting into business and just being one of the boys.
Yeah.
Because they're one of the boys, but my point is, man, being a referee is a work unto itself. I mean,
you need the referee.
Yeah.
He's part of it. You know what? A good referee, you don't notice he's there.
Right.
A bad referee, you notice right away.
Right. I'll tell you what, the couple times I've refereed matches, I love being a part of the show.
Yeah.
But being a referee is tough because it's all about the positioning, knowing the rules. I mean, hell, I've been wrestling for, I don't wrestle anymore, but, I wrestle for damn ever. I don't really know the rules until the referee enforces them. I think I do.
Right. Until
it comes, a 5 counter, just on some of the stuff. But did that help you any in
No, not really, because I wasn't a good referee.
Yeah.
I wasn't that good. I wanted to be good, but I wasn't. I wanted to wrestle.
Best referee you ever saw?
Wow. One of them would be Ronnie West.
Yeah.
He was very animated. He wouldn't work for us in this day and time because he'd be too animated. Tommy Young wasn't bad.
I like Tommy Young.
Earl Hebner's a good referee.
Love Earl.
Earl's a good referee. And that's a tough question. I know I'm going to forget somebody, but that's the top three that come to my mind right now. The couple we have right now, Mike Chioda's a good referee. Yeah. He's a real good referee.
I love Art Chioda. I like what Timmy White before he rode off in the sunset.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of good guys.
They are. And they never get any taste of the glory, and they certainly help people get their taste of it.
With the holidays upon us, now is the time for gift shopping, gift giving, and festive parties. The last thing you should be doing with your time is hauling your carcass around town to get all your office supplies in order. Well, our friends at Zorro.com are here to lend a hand because they got everything you need for your office in one place. Zorro.com, spelled Z-O-R-O, is where you'll find everything you need for businesses of any size and almost any industry. Electrical, plumbing, contracting, manufacturing. Don't sweat it because Zorro has you covered. Zorro.com has tools and equipment, safety and office supplies, cleaning items, and more from brands you know and trust such as Stanley, 3M, Milwaukee, Schneider, and Rubbermaid, just to name a few. Zorro.com offers amazing customer service from real people based in the U.S., and you'll dig the fast, free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Just for listeners to the Steve Austin Show, visit Zorro.com/Austin to sign up for Z-Mail and get 15% off your first order. Again, that's Zorro.com/Austin for 15% off your first order. Zorro.com/Austin. Get it all in one place. Hey, you all know about my history with Iron Mike Tyson, so it's my privilege to welcome his podcast, Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, to the PodcastOne family. Join Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, as he pours his soul into conversations with fascinating minds, celebrities, and athletes, along with his cosmic millennial sidekick and former NFL athlete, Eben Britton. Iron Mike dives deep into the issues impacting us all today. This podcast will change the way you see the world. Don't miss Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson every week on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne. Make sure you tell your friends about the show and leave a rating and review.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
So all the feuds that you guys have been involved in, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears all over the territory. But during your heyday in the world class years, what was your week like? Because as down in Tennessee, USWA, Monday Memphis, Tuesday Louisville, Wednesday Evansville, Indiana, Thursday Spot Show, Fridays Dallas, Saturdays Memphis TV, Saturday nights Nashville Fairgrounds, Sunday might be a spot show. That's what we did every single week. Of course, WCW, we're not there yet, but in world class, what was your week?
Well,
because y'all was making good money and y'all was working all the time.
Yeah, we had a deal when we first came in there where we would not move into the place. And I learned that from Alpha and Sika, who, by the way, Alpha and Sika and Mike Boyette really, really, especially Alpha and Sika, helped my progression in this business. And I always give back to them.
Right.
But we had the deal where we would come in for 2 weeks at a time and then have a week off. And we do it to where, you'd only have all three Freebirds 1 week out of the month. Then you'd have Terry and Buddy 1 week. You'd have Michael and Buddy. And then, somebody would be off. Buddy had to work all the time.
Right.
He had 2-3 wives or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I got to be Ken Mantell's assistant booker. Vince put me on that. So I got to learn that end real quick. So my week would be Mondays, I'd be down to the Sportatorium working on stuff. Then we drive over to Fort Worth, and we do Monday night there and do that Saturday night show, which was on a big cable, too, at that time, Channel 11. Tuesdays was a spot show. Wednesdays was a spot show. Thursday, Friday was Dallas, and Saturday and Sundays. And then you would run San Antonio every couple of weeks. And, you go to Lubbock, every few weeks.
Good haul, yeah.
Yeah, Lubbock, good haul. We got introduced to Lubbock in a real funky way.
What happened?
Well, before we were against the Von Erichs. We were their buddies, which really helped that story. So we're out in Lubbock, and there's this place that the people know the Von Erichs, so they give you a good deal at the hotel. And this old lady and this guy that had one leg, and they kept wanting to take us to the strip joint. And this wasn't a gentleman's club.
Right.
This is outside of the city limits. And I didn't want to go. I didn't go to those places that time because I knew the way I looked, I was going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So we went to the gym, and then they pulled up at the place, and I said, well, I ain't going in. Well, David Von Erich and Terry grabbed me by feet and arm, pulled me out of the car, and they're dragging. I said, all right, I'll go in. So we go in there.
Straight up shoot. You're shooting, right?
I swear to God.
Okay.
So we go in there. There's a Pac-Man machine. At the time, I like playing it. And I have my jeans tucked in, my cowboy boots, and my Jack Daniels shirt on with my vest.
Yeah.
And I'm playing the Pac-Man game. All of a sudden, I feel upside my back. I thought, damn. I thought it was one of them. Either David or Terry, and
someone ribbing you.
Yeah, that's a little stiff. I turned around. There's this drunk-ass bandito.
Oh.
Okay?
Super.
And so I'm looking at him. He goes, what gang are you in? Because I had the vest on. I said, I ain't in no gang, buddy. Well, about this time, Terry had seen it.
Oh, shit.
And here come Terry, and the guy was leaning over on his chair, and Terry come over, and he said, hey, big boy, this ain't got nothing to do with it. And he hauled off and slapped Terry. When he slapped
Terry?
He slapped Terry. When he slapped Terry, he snatched that guy up out of his seat, took him down. The guy had a buddy, and it was like one of those dreams, man, bad dreams. I grabbed that guy, and I had him down. Boom, and we had them both down. Now, I'm worried about knives coming.
Yeah.
Right? And I looked at Terry. I said, all right, let's let him up. We got him. Let's get out of here. As we're getting up, swear to God, the guy's going into his vest, right? He's going to get a gun. Run to the back door. It's locked.
Oh.
Finally, thank God, this guy had a peg leg. Finally, we get out. We run outside the strip joint. We run up to the road. The guy comes out. We're to the right. He looks to the left. He looks to the right, sees us, and he goes, boom, 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 and he unloads. Look at Terry. Terry's laughing. I said, what the hell are you laughing at? He said, because he missed. True story. But that was our week, and really interesting weeks because we all had the same apartment for the first time ever, and that didn't turn out well. The first night we went in there, Terry kicked the front door off the hinges.
Why?
Just wanted to. Couldn't find the key. And we would always have, a half a gallon.
Boy, if I kicked every door off a hinge and I couldn't find a key, too, there'd be a bunch of them.
We were drinking Jack, and back then I remember Hollywood came out for 1 week, and we sent him in the liquor store, and we said, okay, go get us a half gallon of Jack, and we need a mixer, so get us some Coke. And he said, okay, how much? I said, 16 ounce. For a half a gallon. And there was Coke left over, by the way. The kind you drink. Yeah. Anyway, we tore that apartment up, and what was funny was there was a guy upstairs that he kind of had some stuff we like to check out once in a while, and we would run the air conditioning all the time.
Jesus Christ.
And he would have fans on and stuff. It was so hot in Texas. And he came down and asked us about our electricity bill. And we showed him. It was like $60. He goes, God dang. He said, mine's like $150. Yeah. Come to find out, the maintenance guys there were rodeo guys that were friends of Terry's cousin. They had switched our wires with his wires. He's paying our electricity bill. But we had some unbelievable times.
I really enjoyed when y'all were coming through WCCW, and I would pay my money to go watch y'all work. I enjoyed you running Mid-South Power Pro, working for Bill Watts. Man, you was doing a lot of stuff with Jim Ross, and y'all were just like frickin' frack. Just great chemistry together. Did y'all hit it off right off the bat? What was it? I mean, it was the television, the TV was, let me say this, it was just so fun to watch. Not funny because it was a bunch of hijinks. I mean, like, it was just so badass. It was a great show to watch.
Yeah. Well, that was when Mid-South went to UWF, I think.
Right.
And what a crew we had. I mean,
damn right.
DiBiase, Doc, Duggan. I mean, you had some hosses. And the thing with JR just kind of blossomed. At first, just like we all were back then in the business, well, JR, he's Bill's gopher,
Yeah.
And then you came to find out that, no, he's more than a gopher. He understands his business.
Yeah.
And then when you get to know him, he's a funny guy.
Oh, he's hilarious.
I mean, he's very self-deprecating and
sarcastic.
Yeah,
everything.
But so we started doing the thing, and it just clicked. with the commentating. And, he knew his role. He knew that he could only go so far because I was a top heel.
Right.
And that's important, know your role.
Right.
But that's where that came from.
How did the consistency come about? Because you were Michael P.S. Hayes.
Right, purely sexy.
Right.
And DiBiase came up with it one night, just a different version of
the crowd bought into it, hook, line, and sinker.
Well, yeah, because I sold it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
if I act like it didn't bother me, it wouldn't have gone nowhere.
But that damn look you had on your face was priceless. Of course, the back and forth with the hair. Yeah, you milked it to the nth degree. It was great television, great action. And DiBiase was on fire. I mean, like you said, it was a great crew of guys.
It was a good crew of guys, and we were having a good time. That was another case in which, I was in Georgia Championship Wrestling when Barnett had it, and we first went out to Michigan and Ohio, and we're just doing unbelievable business because it had laid dormant. Nobody was running it. And we all wanted Barnett to go nationwide.
Right.
And he wouldn't because they were my friends. It was that unwritten rule. When we went to World Class, there it was again, because Fritz had that unbelievable 6-camera TV. It was revolutionary, and you mic'd the ring, and you could feel the hits. And then Fritz had friends, and he wouldn't go. And then Watts was going to go. But by the time Bill made the attempt, I don't think he quite realized what the investment would be.
Right.
And he got a little scared, and that's his right. He wants to keep his money, and, he sold it out to Crockett. But it was like I kept missing that boat, and parts of that's my fault because we came to WWF and that didn't last long at all.
Right.
That was, didn't work.
But then going back to the Mid-South, you were there right in the middle of Missy Hyatt versus Dark Journey, right?
Oh, yeah.
Man, that was a hot-ass angle.
It was.
And that was two chicks out there, two ladies, I want to use the right term. But, man, it wasn't a wrestling match. No. This was a cat fight. I mean,
something you see in a bar.
Yeah, and
clothes ripping.
It was riveting.
Yeah,
and they were. I mean, it's almost like a shoot.
Yeah,
and of course the loaded Gucci bag, and I mean, god dang, Jim would embellish that thing. I mean, like the loaded Gucci bag. I mean, forget about it. It was a hot angle for you guys sitting back, and that money was a money drawn angle.
It was a money drawing angle, and see, that was the thing that will always work is packaging. You can't. Not everybody's going to be down with the top act.
Right.
But there might be something underneath that appeals to them more.
Right.
And, that's something I learned from Watts, and I learned a lot from Bill Watts. I learned how to get fined up the yin-yang, but that's okay. It is what it is. But I learned the business, and he would always package that thing. Back then, the Fantastics were there. They weren't the top team. But they were a good addition to the great action.
Yes.
And a good addition to the card. You had Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert there.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, one-man gang. What a great big guy he was.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever got to work with him.
Never got to work with him, but I enjoyed watching him.
He was good. So, we had all those components, and we brought more people over from World Class because that was starting to go down.
Right.
The Link came over there, Dewey.
How was Link as a person? Because I loved watching him. He had the mystique.
Yeah.
He was a missing link. Always jacked up, always in good shape.
I had learned from Buddy that as Dewey Robertson, he was a good mechanic.
Right.
There's that word.
Right.
But he wasn't a top guy. And when he went to that gimmick, it all changed for him.
Right.
And I would say that the person and the gimmick became one.
Right.
And Dewey was a little out there. I know in his later years he got straightened up and was a lot more sane. But I enjoyed him.
But what you're saying goes back to what we were talking about a while ago. Maybe you were not the most athletic cat in the world, but you drew money. Going back to the Link, Dewey Robinson, mechanic in the ring, when he comes up with a missing link, drawing money, and he's coming out to this bang of your head, and he's got his face painted, and there's something cool to it. It's larger than life. It was cool. It looked good. The music was good, and all of a sudden, everybody's selling the headbutt, and it was over.
And Kamala is another one you have.
Oh yeah, I love the Jerry Lawler was on the show. He was talking about it. How he had the idea for Kamala. And then the one time, I think Kamala thought that he was drawing a banana on his belly. It was a moon. It was great.
I'll tell you a story about Kamala. He started with us in that Mississippi opposition territory. And they brought him in as a boxer, Sugar Bear Harris. And Percy was managing him at the time. And so we had a battle royal, and he won. They came around to get the payoffs. And it was the minimum. You got $40. And he had this look on his face and he asked the promoter, he said, but I won the battle royal. He said it was a $2,000 purse. And then he goes, yeah, but that's not what you're going to get. And he goes, but I went and bought tires. He's a great guy, man. But I remember we teamed up with him one time. We had so much fun because when we went to tag him in, he didn't understand and he'd turn on you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you talk about somebody who knew their gimmick.
Yeah.
That guy knew his gimmick.
Yeah, man, he sat there and pat his belly. I mean, and it was believable. I bought into it, hook, line, and sinker, man. I love Kamala. I mean, but I feared him. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So going over, then NWA would have been after Mid-South, right?
Yeah. It was a Georgia Championship Wrestling, transitioning to WCW. And
not NWA, WCW.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when, the corporate suits at TBS started getting involved.
Okay, so then how was all of a sudden you go from down in Florida, then world class, and then some Bill Watts action, and then you go to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then to WCW, and that was Crockett or Ted Turner?
It was both at the time.
Okay,
and it eventually.
But what was different about the action or the in-ring product versus what Bill Watts was doing, or even in Dallas?
Well, Dallas was a band of misfits that hung together because we weren't supposed to be able to draw money. We weren't in that echelon, that political group, that thought that they were better. And so we all kind of, and Brody would lead that charge with us, And, when you got back into the Crockett's and the hierarchy of the NWA, you could see that there was a ceiling. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It was a low ceiling for old Stunted Steve.
They weren't as open to the rebellious lifestyles and attitudes, even though some of them had their own lifestyles, but they was permissible because they were in that political group. In between there too, we went to South Florida for a little bit and went to AWA in the last days there.
How did you find AWA? Because I was about to ask you, had you ever been there? Because I didn't remember you seeing a television program with you over there. It was a little, I don't want to say the work was different. Maybe it was, what was different about the AWA? Because it felt different.
Well, it was an older version it wasn't contemporary to me. And they had their own guys that they used for years and years. They really their peak time was fall and really winter. Summer they were kind of off, and these guys would just come in, do their stuff, and they would draw really good money. Yeah. But they weren't transitioning because the smaller wrestler and the bigger action and quicker, faster action, which is what was working. First time we worked for them, we went up, and we were not happy with the payoff. So we decided that we weren't going to go there. Then after the Florida thing, they called us back, and we went up there. And we went up there with the aspirations to work against the Road Warriors.
Yes.
And when I first mentioned that to Vern, he was like, "You're Road Warriors. You're both heels." I said, "Who's a heel?" I said, "Do you not watch when they come out? They're no heels."
Yeah.
The crowd goes nuts. And it wasn't until we finally gave her notice was going back to Texas that they finally booked us against the Warriors, and we sold out everywhere. And Vern tried to get us not to go. And we sold out in Denver, and he had a meeting with us up in his suite. And he said, "Well, listen, I heard you guys are going to give your notice." He said, "You can't do that. We're doing too much business." And Gordy said, "Vern, we done gave our notice. We done cut promos. We're going." And he goes, "I'm going to tell you something, big boy. You're not going nowhere." And Terry was like, "Oh, yes, we are." We did end up leaving. But, Vern, bless his heart, he didn't understand that he was the only store in town.
Right.
And that had a lot to, don't get me wrong. They had some great matches. When you talk about Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel, what a pairing that was. And, the Blackjacks and all the people that went in and out of there. But as Vince started bringing the entertainment to the sport, and that's what was grabbing people, Vern didn't get that, and we could see the writing on the wall, and everybody started bailing, going back to Crockett and so forth.
Hey, so how was working with the Road Warriors?
We got along real well with Mike and Joe's, especially Mike, Hawk, we got along really well with him.
Yeah.
You had to, you had to have a certain toughness to go in there with them and understand what they did and what worked.
Right.
And that you weren't going to set no heat like you did on Tommy Rich.
Right.
It would they weren't going to stay down that long, but it didn't matter.
Right.
You see, and that's the thing where you have to adapt. We enjoyed working with them. We drew a lot of money. That's all I care about is drawing money. Still today, that's all I care about is drawing money.
So then there you are, AWA. You returned to WCW?
Out of AWA.
You put your notice in, but you saw the writing on
we went back to World Class.
But you were in AWA, you put your notice in, but you saw what Vince was doing over there from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall for AWA.
So, with that being said, what are you talking about? And what direction were they going that no one else was?
I didn't pay a lot of attention to WWF because some of it was not what I grew up with. It was a little bit too character-driven, if you will. But it was working.
And it's funny, you say too character-driven, and now we go back to saying it's the character that's drawing the money.
Well, but see, to me, a character was, the bar guy, the real-life guy.
Right.
And Vince had all kind of characters.
Bigger than, I get you.
That would hit kids and all this stuff. I didn't see that back then.
Right, as a hardcore guy. And me, during that period when I was in WCW and WWF was the opposition, I thought we were more seriously geared to being wrestling.
Right.
That's what was driving me at that time.
And that's the way you were broke in.
Yes.
See, people don't realize the mindset that you have in the way that you were broke in.
In the trenches.
And what it took to break in. Now kids can go anywhere, pay a certain amount of money, and get trained, supposedly, and then they think they're in the wrestling business or sports entertainment. That wasn't it. It took everything you had to be allowed to come into this business,
right,
and then earn your way into this business, and then maybe you could climb the ladder.
So, but y'all were one of the first people to use music, correct?
Yes.
Because now who else makes this claim as well about having ring music? But y'all were
Gorgeous George did it first,
right?
But and then that went away. And then people would sometimes use it periodically. Lawler would sometimes for special shows, special entrants. Nobody used it as a nightly thing till we did. And I don't care what anybody says.
Gotcha.
That's bullshit.
Okay. So that's the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now it was Jerry Jarrett was the one that first allowed us to try this. And I'll never forget in Memphis, I had the record and now he says, okay, we'll have the custodian. He'll play your record. And up comes this older man, probably about 60, 70 years old. And I'm asking him to put it on this last groove because Freebird was the last song on the album.
Right.
And I know he's going to screw this up and then we're going to come out to Give Me 3 Steps or something like that.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, man, he hit it right on there. We came out and they had the spotlights twirling and the house lights down. And boy, you knew right away. Home run.
Yeah.
And what really got me is when we left there, because that didn't work out long. Ironically enough, we were against Lawler and Dundee. And when we made our entrance, Jerry was in the ring with his arms folded and his body language said to me at the time, this is a threat. And he turned heel on Dundee the next TV. So that was kind of the end of that. But it was a blessing in disguise because we went to work for Watts. What pissed me off to no end was when we got there, Watts said, you guys got music, right? Yeah. Well, where's your album? I said, it's right here. And we were at TV. And I said, well, why? And he goes, because I'm going to go make a card of it. And I'm going to play it when you come out on TV. God, I was mad at myself. I never thought of that. I thought of everything. I never thought about putting it on TV, which was the whole icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But I didn't think of it, and Watts did. And, then next thing you know, Junkyard Dog turns heel. He's coming out to Bad Leroy Brown.
Right.
And then it was a race.
Right.
It was a race to get to Georgia Championship Wrestling and be the first one to play music on TV. And that's why we left in our heyday at that first run with Bill Watts. Because Ole Anderson came to one of the big shows and he wanted us to come and we said we'd come. And that's when we started making all those outfits and hitting TBS with that. And as they say, rest is history.
Man, here's an interesting thing because, when I broke in, there was a couple of territories still left. And all of a sudden, you guys are giving Vern Gagne your notice. You're giving Bill Watts your notice. I mean, you guys are leaving on a whim. I mean, that takes guts.
Yeah.
It also takes confidence. And it's a risk.
Yeah, it is. But, I was taught from FNCCA, when you get hot, that's when you go. Because you always have a place to come back to.
Right.
And what was cool then is you didn't have so many national TVs where you had a good angle. You'd take that thing right over to somewhere else and run some form or fashion of it. And it would work, whether it was the same people or not. The elements are still there as long as, we were there. God, dog, just talking about all that stuff brings back great memories.
But how refreshing was that just to be able to just, hey, man, pick up and, man, leave the Carolinas to go to, to Tulsa, Oklahoma area, then Dallas area, Minnesota area.
Well, it was cool in the fact that, the kids can't do it now.
Right.
Because they ain't got nowhere to go.
No.
So, but back then, people had to treat you different. Well, here's what we were thinking. Well, we thought about that. We don't like that.
Right.
How about we do this? And, people would work with you a little bit better. I remember when I was finishing up in Mid-South, and going to Georgia, we had the situation where Terry and Buddy got tired of doing the promos, and we would have to do them in Jackson after Baton Rouge, and we were living in Jackson, Mississippi. So Terry and Buddy would go home to Jackson, and I'd go with them, and then I'd fly across from Jackson to Shreveport and then drive back to do the Jackson show that night. Well, Grizzly Smith would be in charge of taking me, making sure I made it.
Right.
And then that last week, when we're doing all our loser leave towns, I'm in the back of his car having a hell of a time, and there's nothing he can do about it but just sit there and grin and bear it.
Yeah.
As I'd pop my beer and stuff and get to the town.
Hey, man, how many days of the month or the year were you guys working? I mean, because, man, we hit a good stretch when I first came into World Championship Wrestling. And, we were probably working 25 days out of the month. And that's as hot as and heavy as I got. But from the way you were talking, y'all had to been on the road. I mean, it's damn near 24/7.
Yeah. I think one time Buddy counted, I think one time we went like 66, 69 days in a row. And that included double shots.
Yeah. And if you wasn't doing that, you might only have 1 or 2 down days or even 1 down day, but then it's right back into another 20 or 30 stretch.
Well, the thing is, you ask for time off, man. You take some time off, you might lose your spot.
Yeah. Yeah. You ain't making no money. You ain't getting no retainer.
No.
Yeah.
Ain't no royalties.
Nothing.
So you got to make that hay while the sun shines.
Some of your favorite feuds. I know Von, man, dude.
Yeah.
When was the time when y'all turned the heel on them? What was it? Bam Bam pulled his boot off and hit. Was it Kevin upside the head with that damn boot? It was in the Sportorium, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the key factor was when Kerry took
the cage.
Yeah,
with Flair.
Yeah, Kerry took on Flair.
Yeah,
and they had a shoot vote for the referee, and they voted me in.
Yes,
and then we decided to make sure nobody got to the door. Terry would be the gatekeeper.
Yeah,
and then during the course of this. Me and Flair are getting in arguments.
Yes.
And I nail Flair and I tell Kerry to top him, throw him on top.
And he wouldn't.
He won't take the win.
Yeah.
So then I get mad. It's really coolly designed because then I get mad and says, screw it. And Terry sees that, says, come on. He opens the door. Leave, Michael. So Terry turns his back. When I go to leave, Kerry's behind me. Flair knees Kerry, which knocks me through the gate. When Terry turns around and sees me on the floor, he sees Kerry going like this. He assumes Kerry did it, slams the door, and me. That was it.
Hit Kerry in the head, color everywhere. What, did Flair pin him, or was it a figure four?
No, he should have.
Yeah.
They did a false finish on that,
right.
And then Kerry eventually couldn't continue.
Right.
But boy, that was hot.
Yeah. So what was the occasion then? What was it, a couple of weeks later? But it was something y'all in there opened up a can on them and damn, Bam Bam pull off that. Or was it Kevin wearing the boot?
No, it was us.
It was y'all's boot, but he ended up getting a hold of it in the melee.
Yeah. And that's where your first, we call them bad street fights.
Yeah.
But that's where your first hardcore matches were coming from.
Right.
Not the first ever.
Right.
But I mean, the first prominently on television.
Yeah. God dang, you just said it. Bad street matches. Let's talk about Bad Street, Atlanta, GA. Baddest street in the whole USA. That's one of my favorite songs of all time. How'd you write that damn thing? And that had a good groove to it.
Well, I wrote it with a guy named Jimmy Papa, but I'd always want to do my own song. Jimmy Hart had got me thinking that when I was in Memphis. And at this time, everybody was starting to use music. And remember, we would all use music and not have to pay on it. Well, the music industry started getting smart to that, and I figured I really do need to get us a theme song. I stole a line from Bad Bad Leroy Brown. He did a promo one time, and this is usually how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And he said, I live on Bad Street. He said, he said, I live on Bad Street. And he said, the further you went down the block, the better it got. Mm-hmm. And we lived in the last house on the right. I thought that said everything, man. It's okay, because I'm imagining how bad could this street be? And they live in the last house. So if you make it down there, you pretty bad son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I just took those lyrics and wrote a song around them. I'm proud of those lyrics. But it was just the mindset. I built the lyrics around the Freebirds and what we did and how we looked at life.
So you mentioned the back surgery, and that was the end of your career. How did the back injury happen?
Working with Johnny B. Bad. No. From those bad bumps that I would take, I was working in Sharpsville, Georgia. And I was working with Johnny that night, and I just took a hip toss. And when I got out of the ring that night, I felt a different pain. sharp shooting pain, and it ended up just getting worse, and it just, ended up that I was shattering my discs, and then the sciatic nerve, the fragmented discs were on it. And I finally, because back then you didn't go check nothing out. You just knew sooner or later it was going to go away to some, level. And when they took me to the doctor, they went, holy Jesus, And then they said, why don't you try some rehab? And I tried that. And then I tried epidurals. And then one day when the Super Bowl, I think it was in '94, was in Atlanta, we've been out going to Super Bowl parties, and I came home. And later that morning, I got up to put a videotape in, to watch. And boom, I couldn't get up off the floor. I mean, for like a couple hours, everybody else was asleep, and I wasn't going to say nothing. I finally dragged myself up on the couch, and I finally got somebody up, and I said, I got to go to the doctor, and that's it, man. And they cut me.
So what did it end up being?
I don't remember what they call it, dissectomy or something like that. They fused,
a discectomy?
Yeah. And they fused, my back together. I mean, I walked the next day, and, I tried real hard to get back into it. But, once the Freebirds kind of went their different ways and stuff, my love for the business was still there. I knew eventually if I was to last in this thing that I love, that I was going to have to migrate to where I have gone.
Right.
To be behind the scenes.
That's funny because as we were talking earlier, and we had alluded to this when you were Dok Hendrix, and you weren't ready to be Dok Hendrix.
Right.
And to what I always say a lot of times when people say, once you go back and do certain things with WWE, man, the ring is your proving ground. You can talk all the trash that you want, and in the vein of selling tickets, or to convey your thoughts in a promo, or to get your character across, or to do whatever it is to do business. But when you do not have the squared circle, that's where everything starts and stops. Mm-hmm. A promo's great, but you got to be able to back up all that shit in that ring.
Yep.
And sometimes when I would come back and I just come, make a promo or clack some beers together, the fans loved it. But inside, I was like, it was like when that monkey, you turn the key in his back and he claps the cymbals together,
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that proven ground, anymore.
And
that's what you hang your head on. No, it wasn't satisfying.
It wasn't satisfying. And, that was it. That was hard for me for a long time. But, then I watched, I listened, I learned, and I realized that I still had so much more to give. And then I finally learned to start living, somewhat vicariously through others. Started with the Hardys, but then helping other people with their matches and my knowledge. And, the whole time I'm learning too, because if you ever think you know it all, it's time to go.
Let's give it up for Geico for supporting Steve Austin's show for all these years. In just 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Geico has been offering great rates and great service for over 75 years. And anytime you need help, you can speak to one of their trained specialists 24/7. Go to geico.com and start saving cash. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off into the sunset. Don't forget to rate and review the Steve Austin Show on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends to check us out. If you want to reach me here on the podcast, send an email to questions@steveaustinshow.com. And I want to say thank you very much to all the people on the East Coast and everybody that traveled to the 3 states where we're now shipping Broken Skull IPA, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, for being so kind and welcoming us over in that part of the territory. We're about to send a whole bunch more beer your way, so keep on the lookout. It's Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. And if you go to the El Segundo Brewing Company website, click on the interactive map to find where Broken Skull IPA and a couple of other beers from El Segundo Brewing Company can be found in an area near you. Thank you again for everybody who has been so cool about receiving this beer over there. I try to give everybody a cheers or a hell yeah. If you send me a shout out on Twitter, I try to tweet you back. Thank you much for your support. It means a lot to me. In 2020, we're looking to expand to several more states, and I'll have information on that as we get closer to that date. Speaking of getting close to that date, God dang, I can't believe it's already December. Christmas around the corner, New Year right down the road. Hey, don't forget the King of Attitude shirts are available now at Pro Wrestling Tees store. Check out ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin for those shirts. We just released about 4 or 5 brand new designs. I'm fixing to come up with some badass designs for 2020 and a couple of other things I think you will be interested in. Broken Skull Ranch apparel is on there also. That is ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. Hey, it's the Christmas season. A T-shirt would be a great stocking stuffer. So would a badass pocket knife from Cold Steel. I got 2 of them we collaborated on. Cold Steel Broken Skull Knife or Cold Steel Working Man's Knife. You can find them both at my Amazon store. Amazon has the best price on both knives. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin. I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in to the WWE Network and watched my visit with the one and only Undertaker on Steve Austin, the Broken Skull Sessions. I think, I don't know how many views, downloads, streams it did, but it was a bunch. Thank you very much for the support. Pro wrestling put me on the map. It's good to be back in that space. Thank you very much, and a shout out to the Undertaker. As we said on that broadcast, we have only scratched the surface. So I look forward to sitting across from the dead man again, drinking some Jack Daniels whiskey, sipping some Broken Skull IPA, and getting to some specifics on some badass stories. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. I want to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially Zoro.com, Health IQ, Lightstream, Geico, and BetOnline.ag. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. If you need more info on my sponsors, check out the show description to this episode for details. Folks, if you see me in the woods, you'll proudly see me riding a Kawasaki. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of Steve Austin Unleashed every Thursday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.